Hello, I'm Alan, and welcome to today's edition of Alan's Cycling Adventures. We are leaving Liberal, Kansas today, headed to Dodge City. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or ideas for future editions of Alan's Cycling Adventures, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Well, without further ado, let's ride. Okay, once again today, I do have a couple of real-time segments, which I shot about 10 miles in. So I'm going to start off the voiceover with some thoughts on today's ride. And then I'll give the rest of the voiceover after those two live action shots. I would have to say that, just as I've said before, that every ride has its challenge and every ride has its reward. In this case, the challenge and the reward, for me, I think were the same, or at least related. The challenge for this ride was the wind. The wind was brutal. It started out probably gusting to 30, and by the end, I think it was gusting well over 40. From the north, we were heading northeast until we turned north. So we had a quartering headwind for most of the trip, with a direct headwind for the last 20 or so miles. And the reward was getting out of that wind. That was the challenge and the reward for me. I am out here on the wide open road about 10 miles past Liberal. Say hi!
Hi!
And here comes Steve, chugging along in the wind. Some additional thoughts on today's ride. Today I made a new friend, and that's always fun. For those of you who know me, this will come as no surprise. That new friend was of the canine variety. That's right. When I got to Dodge City, as has become the norm for me, I found a convenience store to stop at to get a sandwich and a chocolate milk. When I pulled up in front of the convenience store, there was a guy there who was also just hanging out eating, except he was sitting there with his puppy. He had a 2-month-old puppy with him who was just adorable. Her name was Bonnie. I even joked with a couple of my friends at dinner that I had stopped to get a sandwich, and while I was sitting outside eating my sandwich, someone was begging for my sandwich, but since she wasn't your typical beggar, I forgave her. And then I showed them the picture of Bonnie, because she was just so cute, so precious. Anyway, you'll have to look at my blog in order to see the picture I took of Bonnie. And if you don't check out my blog, just take my word for it. She was cute. The other thought for the day was it actually turned out to be a good thing that in my training I ignored some road closed signs, because I did it again today, kind of. After we turned north, and I had even had a conversation with Dana when we turned north, and he had said, yeah, it's 20 miles straight ahead, and then you'll make a left on, I think he said it was Wyatt Earp Boulevard or Wyatt Earp Road or something like that. And so he had no idea what we were going to be facing maybe a mile or two before Wyatt Earp Road or Boulevard. And that was that the highway came to an interchange with another highway that went east-west, and going straight ahead on Route 283 North, 283 North was closed. Not for very far, but it was closed. They were repaving. And so I got to the interchange and turned north and saw that that was not going to work. Not turned north, turned west. And that was not going to work. The road was not doubling back or heading north or anything like that. And so I ended up making a turn and heading through the construction zone at low speed, but still, until I was past it. So once again, kudos to my training and preparation. In terms of today's ride, we rode from Liberal, Kansas to Dodge City, Kansas, and we experienced some of that famous or infamous Kansas wind. We started at 7:04 a.m. The weather was clear, 52 degrees Fahrenheit at the start, with a feels-like temperature of 50 degrees Fahrenheit. The humidity was 38%, and according to Strava, and this is a lie, it said that the wind at the start was 13 miles per hour from the north. It might have been 13 miles per hour gusting to 20 or 13 gusting to 25, but it was not a straight 13 from the north, that is for sure. Anyway, the length of this ride was 83.68 miles. I had an average moving speed of 11.6 miles per hour, which, I've got to be honest, there were times on this ride where I was struggling to maintain 10, and I was below 10. So I will take 11.6 happily. My maximum speed was 25.6. I have no idea how I managed that. Must have been a downhill section right at the beginning, because once the wind really started howling, if you were going downhill, you still had to pedal because the wind was so strong it would blow you right up the hill. Anyway, I had a total moving time of 7 hours, 13 minutes, and 10 seconds, and an elapsed time of 8 hours, 32 minutes, and 45 seconds. I'll explain a little bit about that hour and 15-ish minutes shortly. My average heart rate was 119 beats per minute, and my maximum heart rate was 139 beats per minute. According to Garmin and Strava, I burned 2,185 calories. Take that with a grain of salt, and you'll know why when I get to the average power output. My average cadence was 59, and my maximum cadence was 93. We had an elevation gain of 1,039 feet according to Strava, and 1,486 feet according to Garmin. Even though this ride was more downhill than uphill, it did feature a little bit of climbing. I had 25,523 pedal strokes. I'd have to go back and review all of my rides, but I would not be surprised if that is among the highest of the rides so far, because I was pretty much most of the day cranking in easy gear. So lots and lots of pedal strokes. And according to Strava, my average power output was 47 watts. I've got to tell you, there's no way that's true. I was putting out way more than 47 watts the entire time. There was one Garmin climb on this ride, which started at 13.7 miles in. It was 0.81 miles in length, and we had an elevation gain of 128 feet with an average gradient of 2%. In terms of this route, we pretty much mostly stayed on 54 East until we turned north on 283 North. And by the way, 54 East really meant going northeast. So we went northeast to north with a north wind. Definitely a challenge. Anyway, this ride started in Liberal. We rode through Archelon, Kismet, Plains, Colano, And then we rode into Meade, which was where we had our SAG stop. And our SAG stop was at the famous Dalton Brothers Hideout, which I got a little walkthrough of. That was kind of cool. Probably would have meant more to me if I knew more history, but I've never really been a history buff. But for what it's worth, we did see the Dalton Brothers Hideout, and I will post pictures of that in my blog. Once we left Meade, it was another one of those stretches of road where we didn't go through many towns. We rode into Fowler and then Mineola, and I believe that was around where we turned north, and then rode another 20 miles or so through no towns until we got to Dodge City. What did we see along the way? Well, we saw a lot of highway. We saw a lot of trucks. By the way, here I am talking to Dana. Anyway, we saw a lot of highway, a lot of trucks, a lot of wind, and ironically, a lot of wind farms. And for the most part, a lot of those wind farms, a lot of the windmills were inoperative and just stuck. But the ones that were working and were turning were really turning fast. So I hope they're generating lots and lots of electricity. That was today's ride. Tomorrow we are going to... sorry, I drew a blank there for a second. Tomorrow we ride to Great Bend. Tomorrow's ride is going to be about 85 miles, so a little bit further than today's ride. There are no climbs on tomorrow's ride, at least not any Garmin climbs. Tomorrow's ride is mostly downhill, which is a good thing. And based on the forecast, it doesn't look like we have a headwind, but it looks like we're going to have pretty much the same wind strength tomorrow as we did today, and it's going to be a direct crosswind for most of the day. This time it'll be a crosswind from the right. Today it was a crosswind from the left. The nice thing about a crosswind from the left is if it does blow you, it blows you away from traffic. Tomorrow it's going to be a crosswind from the right, so it's going to be one of those days where you got to pay real close attention and keep your directional stability, because if you get blown over, you're getting blown towards traffic. Hopefully, we will have nice wide shoulders like we had today. That was a nice feature of most of the route. We didn't really have a narrow shoulder until we turned north on 283, which was nothing like 54 in terms of traffic. But it still had a fair amount of traffic, and it still had a fair amount of truck traffic. A little observation I have made, by the way, about traffic, and that is that most, not all, but most of the truckers are very considerate of cyclists. And if you're a trucker and you're listening to this, I thank you for that. I really appreciate it. The trucks generally move way over. If they can't move over, they'll slow down and stay behind us until they can. Whereas the drivers of pickup trucks, particularly the pickup trucks with out-of-state plates, not the Kansas drivers, but like the Texas drivers and stuff like that, those pickup drivers were not considerate at all. They would blow past us at 70 miles an hour right next to us. Anyway, that's all for today. All right, I am here in Dodge City. Boy, that wind was brutal today. Well, until next time, stay safe out there.